In the previous video, we introduced the servo, motor shield, and how they work with the Arduino. And in this video, we're going to talk about the coding that goes with that. First thing we're going to do is introduce library to the program. So we're going to call up include, declare the name of the library in brackets there, and that creates a library that references in the background. And the next thing we're going to do is that servo that we have, we're going to give it a name. And so we're going to call up servo, and we're going to give it the name paper servo. And the next part in the void setup, this is how it communicates with the board and it begins to establish things on the board. First thing we're going to do is actually create a way to monitor things, and we're going to set up the monitor. So serial begin, and we're going to put that to 9600. And this allows us to use this function here, the serial port, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is take that servo that we've named, so paper servo, and we're going to attach it to pin 10 on the Arduino, and that tells the code where to send information to on the Arduino. So that's really it in terms of the setup and the background of it. And then we can get right into the coding. And what we're going to do within that is we're going to take our servo that we've named, so paper servo, and we're going to write where we want it to go. So we're going to say 180. Now, just a little bit of background on how servos work. They kind of go to a degree. And so when I say 180, it turns 180 degrees. 90 would be 90 degrees. There are some that are continuous, and so you could go up to, say, 720, which would be 2 full rotations, but they come in different forms. But we're going to go with 180. I also want to be able to see what's going on, so we're going to print this to a line. So serial print line, and then in quotations, we'll say what we want it to say. So degree at 180. And with the quotation mark there, it'll turn blue. If it doesn't turn blue, then it's actually trying to do something else. And we finish off with a semicolon. And then let's put a delay on there of 2 seconds. Now we're working in milliseconds, so that would be 2000. So what we have here, we're telling the motor that we've named to write it to 180. We're going to track that through the serial monitor up top, and then we're going to delay 2 seconds. And then what would happen, it would get to the end of the program and it would start again. And so nothing would actually move because it's stuck at 180. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take that, copy it twice, and change its position. So why don't we make it go from 180 to, say, 60 degrees. And we'll change that too so we can follow along. And then we'll change it to 0 degrees. And there we are. First we'll verify it, and everything is okay. And so let's upload that to the board. And now that's up and running. So we can look at it, and we can also follow it through this monitor here. So it's at 180 degrees, 60, at 0, and it goes back to 180. So that's pretty straightforward, and let's make things a little bit more complicated and open up what we can do with this. To do that, let's use a for loop, and we haven't introduced this yet. We first of all need to create a variable. This is a name that we're going to attach to numbers that are constantly changing. And so why don't we give it the name pos, short for position, I guess. That's kind of where the numbers will be stored. And then we're going to create a for loop. And so this is a bunch of coding that kind of loops again and again until certain conditions are met. So we're going to begin with pos equals 0. And if we look back at our code, it went from 180 to 60 to 0. So we're at 0 right now. 0, and it's less than, say, 180. Increase that position by, so plus equals, which is a compounding addition, so it adds to itself. Within these two brackets is the math that it's checking for, and then between the curly brackets here, this is what we're going to tell it to do within this. So now we're going to take that number that we've created, pos, and we're going to send that to the servo. And just so we can keep track of it, we're going to take that and we're going to print it off to the monitor as well. So we're going to say degree at. Now you'll notice I didn't put ln there, so this stays on the same line, and does the next line will continue on that same line, and then we'll call up pos. And so what this is going to do is it's going to write degree at, and then it'll write down the number and then create a new line in the serial monitor. And before we finish this, we're going to say delay 15 seconds. This is a way to just slow everything down a little bit, otherwise it can get a bit jumpy. It's a rather short delay, but it's kind of enough to keep things going. How the for loop works is it'll check this condition. Has it reached 180 degrees yet? If it's still less than that, it'll add the 3, do all this, and then come back up. And once it gets to 180 degrees, so it'll be 60 times it'll go through this, then it'll move on in the program. So why don't we go ahead and upload this? We'll first of all verify it. Yeah, and it's fine. And then we'll go ahead and upload that. And now we can watch the serial monitor here at 0 degrees, and we'll swing up to 180. And then we'll kind of move back down again. Back up to 180. Okay, so that's it. In the next video, we'll talk about how to add sensors and use that within it as well.